It hurts. It's my first time tonight, the virgin bride said to the lonely cowboy. He said, The sun was just beginning to rise over the quiet town of Willow Creek, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold breaths. The air was cool, and a gentle breeze whispered through the tall grass that surrounded the old wooden houses. In one of these small homes, a young woman named Clara was waking up for the very first time as a bride. Her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and nervousness.
Today was supposed to be perfect, but she couldn't stop thinking about all the unknowns that lay ahead.
Clara had grown up in the town, always surrounded by familiar faces and simple routines. She had never left Willow Creek, never traveled far, and never experienced anything beyond the small circle of friends and family she knew. When she met Luke, a quiet and lonely cowboy who had come to town to work on a nearby ranch, something inside her had stirred. He was different from anyone she had ever met. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried a calm honesty that made her feel safe. His eyes, a deep shade of brown, seemed to look right into her soul, and she couldn't help but feel drawn to him. The morning of their wedding, Clara sat by the window, her hands trembling slightly as she held her veil. She wore a simple white dress, not flashy or over the top, but it made her feel like she was stepping into a new world. She had always imagined this moment. Yet now that it had arrived, the reality of it made her heart flutter with a mixture of joy and fear.
She was about to become someone else's wife, to trust someone with her entire heart for the very first time.
Luke, on the other hand, was outside the small house, saddling his horse for the day. The cowboy life was familiar to him, but today was different. He wasn't used to celebrations, flowers, or long ceremonies. His life had been filled with open fields, hard work, and quiet nights under the stars. Yet he had found something in Clara that made him want to step out of his comfort zone, to be more than just a solitary figure in the wild. He looked at the horizon, thinking about the responsibility and the care he needed to show. He wanted to be the kind of man she could trust, the kind of person who could bring warmth and security into her life. As the morning progressed, the townspeople gathered outside the small chapel where the ceremony would take place. The air was filled with a mixture of laughter, whispered conversations, and the soft creaking of wooden benches. Clara's family, though small in number, was buzzing with excitement. Her mother fussed over every little detail, adjusting the folds of Clara's dress and smoothing her hair, while her father, normally reserved and stoic, showed a rare smile that spoke of pride and hope. When it was finally time, Clara walked slowly down the aisle, her hands clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers. Every step she took was filled with a strange combination of hesitation and anticipation, but she could feel her heart pounding, each beat echoing in her chest like a drum. And then she saw him. Birth. Luke was standing at the end of the aisle, his hat removed, his posture steady yet tense. His eyes softened when they met hers, and for a moment the rest of the world disappeared. It was just the two of them, standing in the quiet sunlight, ready to take a step that would change both of their lives forever. The ceremony was simple, yet beautiful. The words spoken by the officiant carried weight and sincerity, and when it came time to exchange vows, Clara's voice trembled, but she managed to speak with honesty. She promised to support and care for Luke, to be a partner in life's challenges and joys. Luke, in his calm and steady manner, made promises that were few but meaningful. Wrath spoke of loyalty, protection, and the hope that together they could build a life of trust and understanding. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the small crowd cheered, and Clara felt a warmth spread through her entire being. She had crossed a threshold into something new, something unknown, yet filled with potential. After the ceremony, they walked hand in hand toward the horse-drawn carriage that would take them back to their home. The streets of Willow Creek were quiet, but a few neighbors waved and offered their congratulations. Clara felt a strange sense of freedom as she sat beside Luke, the world suddenly seeming larger and full of possibilities. She glanced at him, noticing the small smile he offered her. It was subtle, but it spoke volumes. He wasn't a man of many words, but his presence alone reassured her. Back at their home, the day unfolded with gentle simplicity. There were no grand parties or elaborate feasts, just the quiet comfort of being together. Luke showed Clara the little things about his life, the way he cared for his horse, the way he mended fences, and the small routines that had defined his solitary existence. Clara watched him, fascinated by his quiet strength and the patience that seemed to define every action he took. She realized that love didn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was in the quiet moments, in the shared glances, and in the gentle gestures that spoke louder than words ever could. As evening approached, a soft golden light filled the room. Clara found herself sitting close to Luke, her hand brushing against his as they spoke in low, comfortable tones. She felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement as they shared their first private moments as husband and wife. For Clara, everything was new. The closeness, the trust, and the feeling of being known by someone in a way she had never experienced before. She had always dreamed of love, but now that it was real, it was even more profound than she could have imagined. Luke, too, was learning. He had spent much of his life in solitude, and opening his heart to someone else required courage he hadn't known he possessed. But as he looked at Clara, he felt a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never felt before. He wanted to protect her, to support her, and to be the steady presence she could rely on. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a lonely cowboy drifting from place to place. He was a partner, a husband, and someone who mattered to another person in a deep, meaningful way. Night fell gently over Willow Creek, and the stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky. The quiet of the evening wrapped around them, and Clara found herself feeling a sense of calm she hadn't expected. It was a mixture of contentment, anticipation, and a little nervousness about the days to come. She knew that life would not always be easy, that challenges and uncertainties lay ahead. But for now, she allowed herself to simply be present in the moment, to feel the warmth of Luke's hand in hers, and to trust that together they could face whatever the future held. As they settled into their new life, Clara and Luke began to understand that marriage was not just about grand gestures or dramatic declarations of love. It was about patience, understanding, and the willingness to grow together. Every shared smile, every quiet conversation, and every small act of care became a thread that wove their lives together. For Clara, the fear she had felt that morning slowly gave way to a sense of belonging and hope. For Luke, the loneliness that had once defined him was replaced by the quiet joy of partnership and connection. By the end of part 1, Clara and Luke had taken their first steps into a shared life, filled with both excitement and uncertainty. They had learned that love was not about perfection, but about trust, patience, and the willingness to face the unknown together. And as they looked out at the night sky, hand in hand, they realized that this was only the beginning of their journey. A journey that would teach them about life, love, and the quiet strength that comes from truly caring for another person. The next morning, sunlight poured gently through the small windows of Clara and Luke's home. The golden rays danced across the wooden floor, and the soft chirping of birds filled the quiet room. Clara stirred awake, feeling a strange mixture of comfort and anticipation. Her first night as a wife had been peaceful, filled with quiet whispers, shared smiles, and the gentle realization that life had changed forever. Today, the real work of learning each other's habits and rhythms would begin, and Clara felt both nervous and excited. Luke was already awake, moving quietly around the small kitchen. The smell of fresh bread and brewed coffee drifted through the house, and Clara watched him from the doorway. He had a way of moving that was calm and deliberate, as if each action had meaning. Even in the simplest tasks, like setting the table or pouring the coffee, there was a careful thoughtfulness that fascinated her. It was moments like these that made her feel lucky to be with someone who cared not just for her, but for the small details that shaped everyday life. Clara joined him at the table, carrying a small basket of fresh fruits she had picked from the garden the previous day. They shared a quiet breakfast, speaking in soft tones about trivial matters: the weather, the chores for the day, and the plans for the week ahead. Yet even in these simple exchanges, there was an undercurrent of closeness, an unspoken understanding that grew stronger with every word. Clara realized that intimacy wasn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it was about sharing the quiet, ordinary moments with someone who understood and cared.
After breakfast, Luke suggested they take a walk around the nearby fields.
The morning air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of grass and soil. Clara hesitated for a moment, adjusting the hem of her simple dress, but Luke reached out his hand, offering a reassuring smile. "Come on," he said softly. "It'll be nice." Her nervousness melted slightly at the warmth in his voice, and she took his hand, feeling the comfort of his steady presence. They walked in silence for a while, letting the gentle rhythm of their footsteps on the soft ground guide them. The fields stretched out endlessly, dotted with wildflowers and patches of tall grass that swayed in the breeze. Clara couldn't help but marvel at the simplicity and beauty of the land. Life had always been busy and small in Willow Creek, but with Luke by her side, everything seemed larger, fuller, and somehow more alive. As they walked, Clara spoke about her childhood memories, the small joys and fears that had shaped her. Luke listened intently, nodding occasionally, asking gentle questions. He shared stories from his life on the ranch, the early mornings, the hard work, and the quiet nights under the stars. Each story painted a picture of who he was, of the life he had led before Clara came along. She realized that knowing someone wasn't just about love. It was about understanding their history, their struggles, and the things that made them who they were.
After a long walk, they returned home and spent the afternoon tending to the small garden behind their house.
Luke showed Clara how to plant seeds carefully, how to water them just enough, and how to remove weeds without damaging the young plants. Clara laughed when she accidentally spilled water on her dress, and Luke chuckled quietly, reaching over to brush her hair from her face. It was a simple, tender moment, but it carried with it a sense of partnership, a feeling that they were learning to care for not just the land, but for each other.
As the day passed, neighbors came by to welcome Clara officially into the town's small community.
But she felt a little shy at first, unsure of how to respond to the many greetings and warm smiles. Luke, however, remained calm and patient, standing by her side and quietly introducing her to those she hadn't met before. Clara realized that having someone steady beside her made the world seem less intimidating. With Luke, she felt braver, ready to face the small challenges that came with adjusting to a new life. Evening came with a soft, rosy glow. Clara and Luke sat on the porch, sipping warm tea as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky was painted in streaks of orange, purple, and pink, and a few stars began to twinkle above. They spoke in gentle tones about the day, sharing their thoughts, hopes, and little fears. Clara admitted she sometimes felt nervous about living in a world so much bigger than the small routine she had known. Luke listened, nodding, and offered reassurance not through grand words, but through his calm presence and quiet confidence. Later that night, as they prepared for bed, Clara felt a new layer of closeness growing between them. Marriage, she realized, was not a sudden transformation, but a slow and steady weaving together of two lives. She thought about the way Luke had been patient, kind, and attentive throughout the day. She thought about the way he had shared his world with her, opening up about his past and his daily life. And she realized that love was built not just on feelings, but on understanding, trust, and the willingness to be vulnerable with someone else. Luke, in his quiet way, had noticed the changes in Clara too. He saw how her nervousness was slowly giving way to comfort, how her smile seemed to grow more confident with each passing hour. He felt a sense of pride and responsibility, knowing that he had a role in nurturing this new life together. He didn't need to say much. His actions spoke louder than words, By simply being present, attentive, and reliable, he was teaching Clara that she could depend on him, and that together they could navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The next morning, the rhythm of their life began to settle into a pattern. Mornings were for chores, for tending the land, and for small shared breakfasts. Afternoons were for exploring, learning, and discovering new aspects of each other's personalities. Evenings were for quiet reflection, for talking about dreams, and for simply enjoying the comfort of being together. And desperate, Clara discovered that this routine, though simple, brought a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never experienced before. And Luke found joy in seeing Clara adapt, in witnessing her curiosity, her laughter, and her growing confidence. Over the next few days, Clara began to feel more at home in this new life. She learned how to milk the cows, how to ride a horse without fear, and how to manage small tasks around the house with efficiency and care. Luke guided her patiently, never rushing, never criticizing, but always encouraging. Each success, no matter how small, became a shared triumph. Clara felt a deep sense of satisfaction in learning, in growing alongside her husband, and in contributing to the life they were building together. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, Clara and Luke sat by the fireplace. The flames flickered softly, casting warm shadows across the room. Clara felt a wave of gratitude for the simplicity of the moment, but she had entered this marriage with fears and uncertainties, but now she felt a growing confidence in herself and in the life she was creating.
Luke, noticing her thoughtful expression, gently reached out and took her hand.
"You're doing wonderfully," he said quietly, his voice calm and reassuring. Clara smiled, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, Clara and Luke grew closer. They discovered the joy of shared work, the fun of small adventures, and the comfort of quiet companionship. Clara realized that happiness didn't always come from grand events or dramatic gestures. Often it came from the simple act of being present with someone, of learning each other's rhythms, and of caring deeply for another person's well-being. Luke discovered that love could be gentle, steady, and patient. It wasn't about showing off strength or bravery. It was about being consistent, reliable, and kind. By the end of part 2, Clara and Luke had built a foundation for their life together. They had faced the first challenges of marriage, not dramatic storms, but the small uncertainties and adjustments that come with learning to live together. They had begun to understand that love was a journey, one that required patience, empathy, and effort. And as they looked out at the night sky, hand in hand, they felt a quiet joy and hope for the future, a hope rooted in trust, understanding, and a shared promise of growing together. The morning sun rose over Willow Creek with a gentle glow, spilling golden light over Clara and Luke's small home. The quiet hum of the town was joined by the soft crowing of roosters, the rustling of trees, and the occasional lowing of cows from nearby fields. Clara woke with a sense of anticipation, a feeling she had begun to recognize over the past weeks. Life with Luke was no longer new or intimidating. It was becoming a world of comfort, connection, and shared discovery. But with comfort came new challenges, little surprises, and the lessons that come from truly learning to live with another person. Clara rose quietly and moved to the window. Outside, she saw Luke already in the fields, tending to his horse. He had risen early, as he always did, and there was a focused calm in the way he worked.
Clara smiled to herself, feeling a warm sense of pride and affection.
Rasp. She had spent the last few weeks learning the ways of ranch life, how to care for the animals, how to plant vegetables in the garden, how to handle small chores around the house, and she had discovered that she enjoyed the work more than she had expected. Rasp. She realized that part of love was sharing life, even the ordinary, sometimes difficult moments. After dressing and preparing a small breakfast, Clara joined Luke outside. The air was fresh and cool, and the scent of hay and wild flowers filled the morning. Luke looked up and smiled when he saw her approaching. "Morning," he said simply. Clara returned the smile, noticing how his calm demeanor always seemed to put her at ease. They spent the morning together repairing a broken fence on the property. Luke showed Clara how to hammer the posts carefully, how to stretch the wire just enough to keep the animals in, and how to move with balance and caution. Clara worked alongside him, sometimes fumbling with the tools, sometimes getting dirt or scratches on her hands. But Luke never scolded or grew impatient. He simply guided her with quiet encouragement, praising her effort and laughing gently when mistakes happened. Clara realized that patience was one of Luke's greatest strengths, and she felt lucky to be learning from him. By late morning, they paused to rest under the shade of an old oak tree. Luke handed Clara a bottle of water, and she took it gratefully, noticing the gentle way his hand brushed against hers. The small contact sent a comforting warmth through her chest. They sat together, enjoying the peaceful silence, the simple joy of being close without needing to speak. Clara reflected on how far she had come since the morning of her wedding. Fear and nervousness had slowly transformed into trust, comfort, and a growing love that was steady and deep.
After lunch, Luke suggested they ride into town to collect supplies for the coming week.
Clara felt a flutter of excitement. She had ridden a horse a few times before, but the thought of traveling together, even a short distance, felt like an adventure. They saddled the horses and set off down the dusty path leading to the town center. The ride was smooth, the rhythm of the horses' hooves echoing in time with their quiet conversation. They spoke of small matters, what they might cook for dinner, the plans for planting in the garden, and the people they would meet in town. But there was an underlying warmth in every word, a sense of connection that grew stronger with every passing minute. Upon reaching the town, Clara felt welcomed by the familiar faces of neighbors and shopkeepers. Luke guided her gently through the market, introducing her to people who had become part of their lives. Clara appreciated how he quietly supported her, never pushing her to act confidently, but giving her the space to learn and engage at her own pace. Buying and just being and belonging, not just with Luke, but with the community itself, a feeling that she had longed for but had never fully experienced before. While they shopped, Clara noticed a small stall selling handmade crafts. She stopped to admire a beautifully woven basket, and Luke watched her with a gentle smile. "It would look nice at home," he said quietly. "Bray." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest at his thoughtfulness. The small gestures, like noticing what she liked and supporting her choices, made her feel valued and understood in a way she had never known. She picked the basket carefully, and Luke carried it with a soft nod of approval, as if saying, "I see you, and I care about the things that matter to you." Returning home in the late afternoon, Clara and Luke worked together to organize their supplies. The house felt warmer and more lived in than it had just weeks ago. Clara reflected on the way life had gradually shifted, the quiet mornings, the shared work, the small adventures, and the constant presence of trust and understanding. She realized that love was not about sudden excitement or dramatic declarations, but about the steady rhythm of life lived together, the small moments of care and attention that built a deep, lasting bond. As evening approached, a gentle storm began to form on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled in, and the wind picked up, rustling the trees and sending a faint chill through the air. Clara and Luke moved inside, closing windows and gathering the animals. The storm was a reminder that life could be unpredictable, that challenges could arise without warning. But Clara found comfort in Luke's calm approach. He moved with confidence, taking care of each task with a steady hand, and Clara felt reassured. She realized that part of love was facing difficulties together, supporting each other through uncertainty, and finding calm in the presence of someone who cared. Once the animals were safe and the house secure, Clara and Luke sat together near the fireplace. The storm raged outside, but inside, the warmth of the fire and the comfort of each other's company created a sense of safety. They spoke about the day,
sharing stories, reflections, and quiet laughter.
Clara admitted that she had been nervous about facing life's challenges, but she felt stronger knowing Luke was by her side. Luke nodded, his eyes soft and steady, and reminded her that they were a team, capable of handling whatever came their way. That night, as the storm subsided, Clara felt a growing sense of confidence in her new life. She had learned so much about herself, about Luke, and about the strength that comes from partnership and trust. She understood that marriage was not just about joy and comfort, but about resilience, patience, and the willingness to grow together through both good times and bad. Luke, too, reflected on the past weeks. But he had spent much of his life alone, yet now he found joy in companionship, in seeing Clara's curiosity and growth, and in discovering the quiet happiness of shared life. Over the next several days, Clara and Luke continued to settle into their rhythm. They woke early to tend to the land, shared quiet breakfasts, and explored new ways to support each other. Clara learned to ride faster and with more confidence, to help with chores efficiently, and to anticipate the needs of their home. Luke discovered that patience and encouragement could help someone grow in unexpected ways, and he felt pride and joy in seeing Clara flourish. Together they began to understand that love was a series of small actions, consistent efforts, and quiet moments that formed the foundation of a life lived together. One afternoon, Clara suggested they take a longer ride into the hills beyond the town. Luke agreed, and they set off, enjoying the freedom and adventure of the open landscape. The hills were dotted with wild flowers, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and grass. They spoke about dreams, hopes, and the future, imagining the life they could build together. Clara felt a sense of possibility she had never known, a belief that together they could face challenges, pursue adventures, and create a life full of joy and connection. By the time they returned home, the sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink. Clara and Luke dismounted their horses, stretched, and admired the beauty around them. The day had been simple, yet it held a sense of accomplishment, adventure, and growing closeness. They shared a quiet dinner and then sat on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. The gentle rhythm of night, the comfort of each other's presence, and the understanding that they were building a life together filled both of them with peace. Desperately realized that this stage of life, the quiet, ordinary but meaningful moments, was just as important as any grand event or celebration. It was in these moments that trust, understanding, and love grew strongest. Luke, noticing her thoughtful expression, reached for her hand and held it gently. The small contact was a reminder of the bond they were forming, of the shared journey that had only just begun. By the end of part 3, Clara and Luke had grown closer through shared experiences, quiet adventures, and the steady rhythm of life together. They had faced small challenges, discovered new aspects of themselves, and strengthened their bond through patience, trust, and understanding. The story of their life was unfolding slowly, filled with hope, learning, and the gentle certainty that they were stronger together. And as they looked at the night sky, hand in hand, they felt a quiet, deep joy. A joy that came from knowing that the journey of life and love was theirs to share, one day at a time. Morning came slowly over Willow Creek, soft sunlight spilling across Clara and Luke's home. The air carried the fresh scent of dew-covered grass and the faint smell of wood smoke from the fireplace. Clara woke with a sense of excitement that was different from before. It wasn't the nervous excitement of a bride's first day, or the tentative curiosity of someone learning to live with another person. This was a deeper feeling, a sense of belonging, of trust, and of shared life that had grown stronger with each passing day. Luke was already awake, tending to the small garden behind the house. Clara watched him quietly from the doorway, marveling at the calm focus he brought to every task. He moved with ease and confidence, carrying the knowledge of his life on the land, but also showing care and attention that went beyond the work itself. He wasn't just completing chores. He was creating a life, a home, and a sense of safety for both of them. Clara smiled, realizing how much she had come to appreciate the quiet, patient strength he carried. After breakfast, they decided to take a long walk toward the hills beyond the town. The path was familiar by now, lined with wildflowers and dotted with patches of shade from tall trees. As they walked, Clara felt the rhythm of their companionship in a way that was comforting and inspiring. They spoke about small things at first, the crops, the animals, and plans for the house. But gradually, the conversation deepened. Best, Clara shared thoughts about her hopes for the future, about the kind of home she wanted to build, and the life she imagined living with Luke. Luke listened quietly, nodding, occasionally adding his thoughts in his calm, measured way. He spoke of the freedom he had found in the open fields, of the quiet joys of hard work, and of his desire to make a home where Clara could feel safe and valued. Clara realized that Luke's love was not loud or dramatic, but steady and enduring. It was the kind of love that carried through actions, through daily routines, and through the shared care for each other and their surroundings. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for him and for the life they were building together. As they reached a small stream in the hills, Clara paused to admire the flowing water and the sparkling reflection of the sun. Luke stood beside her, watching her face light up with wonder. He had always been someone who found beauty in simplicity, and he was pleased to see Clara discovering the same joy. They spent some time there, skipping stones and laughing quietly, enjoying the freedom of being in nature together. In these small adventures, Clara and Luke found moments that strengthened their bond and reminded them of the joy that life could bring when shared with someone you loved. Returning home in the afternoon, they found the town alive with a gentle bustle. Neighbors were tending to gardens, chatting with friends, and going about their daily routines. Clara felt a sense of pride in her place within this community. She had grown from a nervous young bride into someone confident, capable, and deeply connected to both her husband and the world around her. Luke noticed this change as well, and he felt a quiet pride in seeing Clara embrace life with curiosity, courage, and a gentle strength. That evening, they prepared a simple meal together. Clara chopped vegetables while Luke tended the fire, and they spoke in comfortable, relaxed tones. There was laughter, gentle teasing, and shared satisfaction in the work. The simple act of preparing food together, of working in tandem, became another layer of connection between them. But Clara realized that love was built in these small moments, in cooperation, in shared effort, and in the quiet celebration of everyday life. After dinner, they settled on the porch with warm cups of tea. The sky was painted with the colors of sunset, streaked with pink, purple, and orange, and the first stars began to appear. Clara leaned against Luke, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. They didn't need to speak much. The comfort of simply being together spoke louder than words ever could. For Clara, this was a new kind of happiness, one that was steady, reliable, and rooted in trust. She had discovered that love was not just about excitement or passion, but about the feeling of home, of safety, and of being understood. Over the following days, Clara and Luke continued to deepen their understanding of each other. They faced small challenges, unexpected weather, chores that needed extra attention, and the learning curve of managing a household together. But each challenge became an opportunity to grow closer. Clara learned patience, resilience, and the value of gentle encouragement, while Luke discovered the quiet joy of nurturing someone's confidence and supporting another person's dreams. Together, they were building a life that was balanced, harmonious, and filled with mutual respect. One afternoon, Clara decided to surprise Luke with a small project. She had noticed a section of the barn that needed repair and took it upon herself to gather materials and start fixing it. Luke watched with admiration and a soft smile as Clara worked diligently, learning quickly and showing determination. He offered guidance when necessary, but allowed her the space to take initiative. This moment, like many others, reminded both of them that partnership was about support, trust, and shared effort. As evening fell, they sat together outside, watching the moon rise over the hills. The night was calm, filled with the gentle sounds of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. Clara rested her head on Luke's shoulder, feeling a deep sense of peace. She thought about the journey they had been on, the nervous excitement of the first day, the slow adjustment to life together, the shared challenges and small triumphs, and realized how much she had grown, both as a person and as a partner. Luke, sensing her thoughts, placed a gentle hand over hers. He, too, reflected on their journey, feeling gratitude for the companionship, trust, and shared understanding they had cultivated. The following days were filled with small adventures and simple joys. They explored the hills beyond the town, discovered hidden trails, and marveled at the beauty of nature together. They hosted neighbors occasionally, sharing meals and stories, and Clara began to feel more confident in her place within the community. Luke, too, enjoyed these moments, appreciating how Clara's presence brought warmth and life into spaces he had once navigated alone. As the weeks turned into months, Clara and Luke's bond grew stronger. They celebrated small milestones: the first harvest from their garden, the completion of repairs around the house, and the moments when they successfully solved problems together. Each success, no matter how minor, became a shared achievement that strengthened their partnership and reinforced their trust in one another. Clara realized that life was not just about reaching goals, but about sharing the journey, supporting each other, and finding joy in the process. One evening, a gentle rain began to fall, tapping softly against the roof, but Clara and Luke sat inside by the fireplace listening to the soothing rhythm. They talked about their dreams for the future, plans for expanding the garden, caring for the animals, and making their home even more welcoming. Clara felt a sense of security she had never known. She understood that love was not about perfection or constant excitement, but about building a life where each person felt safe, supported, and cherished. Luke nodded in agreement, silently acknowledging the truth of her words through his calm, steady presence. As the night deepened, Clara and Luke shared a quiet moment of reflection. They thought about how far they had come, from nervous beginnings, through small challenges and learning, to a place of mutual understanding and deep emotional connection. They realized that life together was a continuous journey, one that required patience, empathy, and a willingness to grow alongside each other. And they felt grateful for each other, for their home, and for the life they were building one day at a time. By the end of Part 4, Clara and Luke had found a rhythm, a balance, and a deep sense of companionship. They had discovered that love was not always dramatic or loud, but quiet, steady, and reliable. It was in the shared smiles, the gentle encouragement, the teamwork, and the understanding that they were building something lasting together. And as they looked out at the night sky, hand in hand, they knew that the journey of life and love was ongoing, filled with hope, trust, and the promise of many more shared days ahead.